True or false? You decide. Alternate realities. There might be more to reality than we think, or there might be more realities than we think. It splits with every choice we make. Hugh Everett proposed this in 1957 with his many worlds theory of quantum mechanics. Picture an electron spinning in every direction at once. That's superposition. Traditional view says measuring it forces it to choose one direction. Everett disagreed. He said the electron keeps spinning in all directions, but in different universes. Each measurement splits reality, creating infinite parallel worlds. That means there are infinite versions of you out there, and every version of you results from the billions of choices that you make. So, there's a reality where you're the president of your own company. There's one where you're a movie star, and there's even one where you're homeless, with no job, living in a roach-filled motel. A few months ago, Google unveiled Project Willow, a 105-qubit quantum computer that solves problems in 5 minutes, that would take the world's fastest supercomputer 10 septillion years. That's the one with 25 zeros following it, or a timescale way longer than the age of the universe. How does it do that? Because quantum computers might be combining computing power across parallel universes. It sounds like science fiction, but the math works. Then, in 2014, the many worlds theory got an upgrade. Physicists from Griffith University said that parallel universes not only exist, but they also interact through gravity. Those electrons spinning up and down, it's two universes merging briefly, each with its own version of that electron. This is the many interacting worlds theory. Again, the math works, and this theory could explain everything from quantum tunneling to zero-point energy to human consciousness. Here's where the many interacting worlds theory gets dark. The Griffith team warns that when parallel worlds get too close, quantum effects intensify. Electromagnetism becomes unpredictable, entangled particles become unentangled. Superposition breaks down. This could cause other realities to cross into ours, where things could exist in two places at once. There's only one known natural phenomenon that can produce enough energy to do this. That phenomenon is lightning. It was the summer of 1974 in Somerset, England. Peter Williamson was flipping burgers on the grill when a storm rolled in. His wife, kids, and guests ran to the patio to stay dry and keep the party going. Peter packed up the grill as the rain came down harder when the thunder and lightning started. Everyone laughed nervously. When a lightning bolt split a tree next door, people stopped, laughing. It was then that his kids noticed their dog was still out in the yard, hiding under a bush. Peter told them to stay put and ran out to get the dog. He was halfway across the lawn when lightning hit again, this time even closer. Peter's friends and family saw his silhouette against the flash. Then he was gone. He just vanished. Mary Williamson screamed. Her husband vanished in a flash of lightning. No burn marks, no footprints, no body. Peter was just gone. The police searched everywhere, the house, the property, and the neighborhood. At first, they thought the lightning had thrown him from the yard, but it was surrounded by high walls. The only exit was a locked gate. The key never left Mary's pocket. 16 people gave the same eyewitness statement. Peter was struck by lightning and disappeared. The police insisted Peter climbed over the 8-foot wall. They said the lightning flash blinded witnesses longer than they remembered. The officer said, if Peter had been hit by lightning, he might have a concussion or amnesia. He'd eventually show up at a home or the hospital, but he didn't. Mary's friends watched the house all night. No Peter. No hospitals reported anyone matching his description. An alert went out on national television. Still, Nothing at this point, the police told Mary she should probably prepare for the worst. She didn't take this well. But on the third day at about 8 a.m., she heard the gardener frantically calling for her. Mary ran outside. Peter was sitting on the grass near the bushes in a daze. She hugged him through tears of joy, and then she noticed something strange. It rained in Somerset for 2 days. Everything was wet, but Peter's clothes were completely dry. And then she noticed those weren't his clothes. Mary took Peter to the hospital immediately. Aside from amnesia, he was perfectly fine. He barely remembered the barbecue. He didn't remember the lightning, and he had no idea where he was during the past 60 hours. Mary asked him where he got the new green corduroy pants he was wearing. He didn't remember that either. The police were pleased with themselves. Peter was struck by lightning and had amnesia, just like they said. Peter was home, and they considered the matter closed. Peter stayed in the hospital for about a week and went home feeling perfectly fine, but he still had no memory of where he was. But a few days after returning from the hospital, Peter started having strange dreams. At first, he saw only brief glimpses of scenes. He was in the rain, frightened and walking down a road. Someone stopped to help. Then the images started coming to him while he was awake. At first, he thought he was hallucinating, but they felt like memories. He just couldn't piece it together. He remembered a kind doctor. The doctor found him on the side of the road. He almost remembered his name, but not quite. Then he was in a hospital, a different hospital. The hospital staff asked his name, but he didn't know. His clothes were torn. There was another patient in his room. Then he remembered pants. Pants. The other patient loaned him the corduroy pants because his jeans were torn apart. That memory hit, and Peter jumped up and ran to his bedroom to see if the pants were there. He didn't expect them to be, but there they were. The label inside said the tailor was Herbert Fox, who had a shop a few towns over. The label also had the letters JB sewn into it. Inside the pockets, he found a pack of cigarettes. He didn't smoke. The brand was Senior Service, the same brand that James Bond smoked. He knew the brand, but the logo was wrong. He found a handkerchief also monogrammed with the letters JB. Peter finally had a lead. If he could find this JB, he would have answers. JB wasn't much to go on, that's pretty common initials, but a tailor named Herbert Fox a few miles away, there could only be one of those. So the next day, Peter decided to pay him a visit. Peter Williamson didn't sleep at all that night. Finding the clue inside the label of the corduroy pants caused his memories to come rushing back. By the time the sun came up, Peter had pieced together everything. Well, almost everything. He remembered waking up in a yard or a garden, but he didn't recognize it. He just knew it felt wrong. He didn't know where he was. He didn't even know who he was. Soaking wet, he stumbled around until he found a road and decided to rest. He didn't know how much time had passed, but eventually a car stopped. The driver offered him a ride. He was a nice man. A doctor, Dr. Nugent. Dr. Nugent was concerned and took him to the hospital. It wasn't Somerset General. It was a small local hospital. He was admitted to a section called Pritchard Ward. It was a nice place, but something felt off. Sometimes Peter would see a shimmering in the air, like heat waves rising off the pavement. And through the waves he'd see different furniture, different walls, even different people. A nurse would walk past, and for a split second, she'd be a completely different person. The clock on the wall showed 3:15, then 2:45, then 3:15 again. His voice sounded strange, too. It was sluggish. Where everyone else was speaking quickly and crisp, when Peter tried to keep up with their pace, his words just sounded garbled. Peter mentioned these symptoms to Dr. Nugent, who ordered concussion tests. They found nothing wrong. The following day, Peter wanted to go for a walk, but the nurses told him his pants were too damaged to salvage. So the man in the next bed offered his spare pair of brown corduroy. The pants fit, and Peter remembered the label clearly, Herbert Fox with the initials J.B. sewn into it. Peter spent the day exploring the hospital grounds. The place felt familiar, although he knew he'd never been there before. The next morning, feeling stronger, but no less confused, Peter decided to retrace his steps. He walked back along the road where Dr. Nugent had found him. Everything felt familiar, but he didn't know why. Then he saw it, the yard where he first woke up. As soon as he touched the gate, everything went dark. Hey, if you're still watching, thank you so much for sticking around. If you're enjoying the content, please take a second to subscribe to my channel. It really helps me out and allows me to keep creating more videos for you. Thanks for your support. When he opened his eyes, he was lying in his own backyard. The gardener was shouting for help. The grass was soaking wet, but his clothes were dry. In his pocket, he had a pack of senior service cigarettes he'd never bought and a silk handkerchief with unfamiliar initials. When Peter was admitted to the hospital, his wife brought him clean clothes from home. He hadn't thought about those corduroys since then, but here he was, driving to the town of the tailor who made them, Herbert Fox. Peter would finally get some answers. When Peter arrived, he asked some of the locals if they knew the tailor, Herbert Fox. They said they knew him well, but there's no way those pants were from his shop. Why not? Because it burned down over 20 years ago. Peter arrived back home bewildered. He couldn't explain the corduroy pants. It's frustrating when you can't explain your pants. Now, about this time, Colin Parson, an investigator and writer, connected with Peter. The story comes from him. He interviewed Peter and Mary personally. He also spoke to the witnesses who saw Peter disappear. Colin took an interest because to him it sounded like Peter had slipped into an alternate reality. Peter had trouble believing this, but the evidence started to mount. Researchers were able to track down the monogram, J.B. The initials belonged to John Blackwood, a regular customer at Herbert Fox's shop. In Peter's reality, John Blackwood died in a mining accident in 1953, but J.B.'s pants were new. In the other reality, J.B. was still alive, and Herbert Fox's shop didn't burn down, and there was more. Colin was able to track down the manufacturer of the pants, who agreed to take a look. They confirmed that Herbert Fox's shop did exist, but it burned down in the 50s and never reopened. They said the zipper was designed in 1968, 14 years after the tailor shop was gone. They said the stitching was authentic. It used their production techniques, though they had no record of this design. They confirmed the material was new. They even asked to be notified if Peter ever found Herbert Fox. They'd never seen that color green before and wanted to use it in a production. Oh, easy. Just get hit with lightning and travel to another dimension. Peter didn't believe in the multiverse theory. He was sure there was a reasonable explanation for what happened. He just needed to find someone who knew him from the hospital. But Peter was at a dead end. The weeks went on and his memories of the other hospital came back. He could remember every detail of the experience, the layout of the hospital, the sounds and smells of Pritchard Ward. He knew the price of tea in the cafe. He remembered Dr. Nugent taking care of him. He remembered all the tests. He even knew all the nurses' names. But at this point, he didn't know if he was losing his mind. After learning, he had clothes from a tailor who didn't exist. He was afraid to tell anyone what he was going through. He tried to forget about it. Then about a month later, he was talking to a friend who just had a minor surgery. The name of the doctor came up. Peter's friend's doctor was Dr. Nugent. Peter was so excited and relieved, he was almost moved to tears. He started splattering his friend with questions. Was Sister Charles there? Was the cafe there? Was there a Pritchard Ward? Peter caught himself and apologized, and then he grabbed his car keys. The small hospital was less than a mile from Peter's house. Though he never heard of it, as he pulled up, everything felt familiar. It was like deja vu, but much stronger. He knew he was here. At the front desk, Peter asked for Dr. Nugent. He half expected the receptionist to say there was no such person, but instead she said, "Wait here." A few minutes later, Dr. Nugent appeared, looking exactly like Peter remembered. Peter jumped up to greet him, but the doctor didn't recognize him. Peter explained his disappearance and his memories of the hospital. Dr. Nugent was patient and listened, but he said he hadn't had an amnesia case in 5 years. He said Peter's subconscious might be creating memories to fill the gaps caused by his amnesia, that Peter probably learned about the hospital from overhearing conversations. After all, Dr. Nugent was his friend's doctor. Peter insisted he knew too many details: the building layout, Pritchard ward, everything. The doctor saw how frustrated and upset Peter was. He showed Peter the intake forms from the night he was admitted. His name wasn't on it. His name wasn't anywhere. Peter left the hospital and got back in touch with Colin Parsons. He wanted to know more about this alternate reality theory. Colin was convinced it was no theory. Peter was at that hospital, just in another reality, transported there by lightning. There is no doubt that Peter did disappear in full view of his guests, and that he walked into another dimension, an alternative universe, whatever name you choose. Colin stayed with the family over a weekend, and they went through the whole experience together, with some of the witnesses to the original vanishing. To Colin, the strongest evidence was the cigarettes. Anyone could sew an old label onto new pants. But it's much harder, especially in 1974, to create a fake pack of cigarettes from a well-known brand like Senior Service. The evidence was the Senior Service logo. It was a little bit off. What Peter and Colin are describing is a Mandela effect. These are shared memories that are wrong. If you listen to the mainstream narrative, that is. The name comes from Nelson Mandela. Millions of people remember him dying in prison and watching his funeral. But that never happened again. That's if you believe the mainstream narrative, or your government's brainwashing techniques that they deployed on you beginning in childhood worked. There are theories of quantum physics that say parallel universes are real and they can interact. And we know lightning is powerful enough to disrupt quantum systems. So next time you hear thunder, pay attention, make sure everything looks right, and that your memories are the truth. Remember, there are infinite versions of you out there who just ask the same question. Infinite versions of you looking into the same storm and imagining that lightning is the doorway to another dimension. And of those infinite versions of you that exist in the multiverse, there's at least one of them out there who may want to steal your soul. The Peter Williamson disappearance is the perfect mystery. But is it true? Well, that's for you to decide. But here's where it gets interesting. The physics behind the story is real. The many worlds interpretation and the many interacting worlds concept are legitimate scientific theories. They have math to support them. There's no direct evidence to prove the multiverse exists, but it would explain things like Bell's theorem, which shows entangled particles influence each other instantly. No matter how far apart they are, science can't explain that. We know particles appear and disappear, and reappear. They have to go somewhere. Google really did post about Project Willow saying that, and this is a quote, "It lends credence to the notion that quantum computation occurs in many parallel universes in line with the idea that we live in a multiverse." That statement got them a lot of attention. It also drew a lot of criticism. Now I don't know if they're right, but I don't know if anybody does. Richard Feynman famously said, "I think I could safely say that nobody understands quantum mechanics." He said that in 1964. We're no closer to understanding how quantum mechanics works. We just know that it does. I think quantum mechanics could answer every question about the universe and our reality. But it's possible, even likely, that we're not meant to understand it. Werner Heisenberg said, "The universe is not only stranger than we think, It's stranger than we can think. In other words, it's beyond our ability to comprehend. Now that might be frustrating to some people. They want answers, they want to know how it works. I'm not one of those people. I actually find it comforting that the fabric of our reality is governed by a sophisticated framework that's intellectually out of reach. It makes me think that there's something bigger out there driving this thing, that we're part of a plan, that our lives have meaning. And because of this, I'm comfortable with my place in the universe. No matter which one it is, thank you, God, for just letting me be here. If you like this video, it was requested from one of my viewers. If there is a topic you would like to hear, just leave it in the comments. And if I can make it, you'll see it soon. Thank you again for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the video. This has been a Fall the Haters video production.